The truth is rarely pure and never simple. That line, it just perfectly captures the spirit of the play we're diving into today, doesn't it?
It really does. Uttered by Algernon Moncrieff, one of the glittering stars of Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest.
Welcome, everyone, to the Uncanny Valley podcast. We're here to explore those fascinating twists in human nature, society, and the stories that maybe shape how we see things.
And today, yeah, it's all about Wilde's masterpiece, The Importance of Being Earnest. And, what jumps out right away, besides the incredible wit, is that subtitle.
A trivial comedy for serious people.
Right.
It's a bit of a head-scratcher, isn't it?
Exactly. Why call something so sharp, so insightful, trivial? You have to wonder what serious points Wilde is smuggling in under the guise of, light comedy.
It feels like a challenge, almost. He's inviting us to look beneath the surface. We're stepping into Victorian England, this world totally obsessed with appearances, with social rules.
Oh, incredibly strict rules. Rules that, let's be honest, seem almost designed to be cleverly broken, which is exactly what happens.
So our mission today really is to untangle this amazing web. Wilde weaves the mistaken identities, the elaborate lies, the really sharp social commentary running through it all.
We want to go beyond just the plot points, Find those nuggets of insight, those unforgettable lines, and see why this story about being earnest, both the name and the quality, still resonates.
What can it tell us about sincerity?
What
about love?
Yeah.
About the masks we all wear, maybe? Especially when the name Ernest itself becomes this, essential requirement for romance.
It's a fantastic paradox. Total Wildean genius right there.
Okay, so let's jump in. Not with dusty books, but right into the heart of London. Algernon Moncrieff's place in Half Moon Street. Picture this luxurious flat. You can almost hear the piano playing from the next room.
It immediately sets a scene of leisure, maybe a bit of decadence, definitely privilege. And then Algernon comes in talking to his manservant, Lane. And that conversation. Wow.
It's brilliant from the get-go. Algernon asks Lane if he heard him playing the piano.
And Lane's reply is just perfect deadpan. I didn't think it polite to listen, sir. It's funny, yes, but it's also subtly flipping the script on the whole master-servant thing.
Yeah, it hints that the staff are maybe seeing more than they let on,
Yeah.
observing the absurdities.
Absolutely. And Algernon's response, it's pure gold. He says, I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately, but I play with wonderful expression.
Right. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life. That's basically his life philosophy laid out in 2 sentences.
Exactly. It's not just about piano playing. He's saying expression, feeling, performance. That's what matters, more than boring old accuracy or science. He values the surface, the style.
And he applies that to everything, doesn't he? It's a perfect intro to the play's obsession with artifice, with performing a self.
Appearance over substance. And Lane just says, yes, it's a perfect straight man. Then they immediately pivot to cucumber sandwiches for Lady Bracknell.
Showing that even with all this philosophy, the trivial demands of society are still paramount.
But the bit about the champagne, that's fascinating too. Algernon sees Lane's records show 8 bottles were drunk when his friends visited.
And he asks, almost casually, why is it that at a bachelor's establishment, the servants invariably drink the champagne? Just throws it out there.
And Lane's answer, it's a quiet masterpiece of social commentary. He says, I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir.
Right. And then he adds, I have often observed that in merry households, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Boom. It's not just an excuse. It's this subtle, cutting remark about marriage itself coming from the servant. And he mentions he's only been married once due to a misunderstanding.
It just adds to the irony. It sets up this whole topsy-turvy logic of the play beautifully. Servants making these dry, witty observations while the masters are caught up in their own, self-absorbed world.
Precisely. It establishes this world where superficiality is almost preferred, where pleasant lies might be better than awkward truths. It's a perfect setup for all the deception to come.
Speaking of deception, that brings us right to the core of Act 1, doesn't it? The double lives.
Yes. Because right after Lane leaves, John Worthing arrives, Jack. But Algernon calls him Ernest.
And Jack goes along with it initially. He says he's in town for pleasure. But Algernon's already suspicious, isn't he? He notices Jack's awkwardness about refreshments, his interest in Gwendolen.
Algernon's got a sharp eye for when things don't quite add up. And then comes the cigarette case. That's the catalyst.
Ah, the famous cigarette case. Algernon finds it. Jack claims it.
But the inscription inside. From little Cecily with her fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. Game over for Jack's story.
Totally caught out. He tries that flimsy excuse about ants being tall or not tall.
Which makes no sense at all. It just digs him deeper. So Algernon forces the confession.
And Jack spills beans. His real name is John Worthing, Jack in the Country, where he's this responsible guardian to Cecily.
But in London, he pretends to be his own imaginary, wicked younger brother, Ernest.
Ernest. The perfect cover story to escape his duties and, well, have fun in the city. It's such a neat commentary on that Victorian double standard duty versus desire.
And just when you think that's the big reveal, Algernon hits back with his own deception. He introduces Bunbury.
Bunbury, the invaluable permanent invalid. Classic.
His perpetual excuse machine, right? Allows Algernon to dodge any boring social thing like dinner with Aunt Augusta by rushing off to Bunbury's bedside. Pure genius social evasion.
So you've got Jack's Ernest for freedom from duty, and Algernon's Bunbury for freedom to escape social obligations. It's brilliant putting them side by side like that.
It immediately flags the central theme, using these invented identities to navigate or really escape the rigid rules of their society. It's like creating an alter ego.
Algernon even calls it Bunburying and tries to make it sound like this essential skill, this art form.
Oh, absolutely. And he drops that killer line. The truth is rarely pure and never simple. He argues modern life would be tedious if truth was simple. It's practically a defensive artifice.
It really challenges the audience, doesn't it? Can you really demand simple truth in such a complex-mannered world?
Meanwhile, Jack, who's trying to be, well, earnest about marrying Gwendolen, wants to kill off his fake brother, Ernest. He says Cecily's getting a little too much interested in him, which, of course, is just asking for trouble later on.
And it leads to Algernon's very cynical take on romance when Jack announces his plan to propose to Gwendolen.
Yeah, Algernon says the very essence of romance is uncertainty. He finds the whole idea of proposing kind of boring, even saying if he ever got married, he'd try to forget the fact. Scandalous stuff for the time.
Definitely shows his more pragmatic, almost dismissive view compared to the sort of idealized romance we see later, even if that's also a bit absurd.
And then she arrives, the force of nature herself.
Lady Bracknell. You know she means business just from the way she rings the bell, that Wagnerian manner Algernon mentions.
Only used by relatives or creditors. It sets the stage perfectly. She's not just a person, she's the embodiment of social law, the ultimate gatekeeper.
Her first interaction with Jack, calling him Ernest still, is just icy cold before she launches into that interrogation.
Oh, the interrogation, it's legendary. It's comedy of manners at its absolute peak. Those questions aren't about getting to know Jack, are they?
Not at all. They're about slotting him into the right social category. Do you smoke? Good. How old are you? Acceptable. Which do you know? Everything or nothing about marriage.
And Jack cleverly says, I know nothing, which she approves of. Her views are just staggering. Education. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. She thinks it's good that education in England produces no effect whatsoever, keeps the lower orders in their place, presumably.
It's terrifyingly funny. Her only real concerns are social standing, money, connections, character love, not on the checklist.
She perks up when Jack mentions his income, notes it down meticulously. But the real bombshell, the thing that truly sends her reeling,
Is his origin story, the handbag.
the handbag. It's just perfect wild. Jack has to confess he was simply found.
In a large black leather handbag with handles to it at Victoria Station. Given the name Worthing because his adoptive father had a ticket to Worthing, it's so ludicrous.
And Lady Bracknell's reaction is operatic. To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life. She compares it to the French Revolution.
It's utterly outrageous. And her final dismissal, marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel. It just shows how ridiculously narrow and status-obsessed her world is.
Lineage trumps everything. Her advice to Jack sums it up. Acquire some relations and produce at any rate one parent. It's brutal, but hysterically funny. It perfectly highlights that clash between Jack's genuine feelings for Gwendolen and the absurd iron grip of society's expectations.
All filtered through Lady Bracknell's tyrannical yet somehow elegant pronouncements. It's a savage critique wrapped in glittering wit.
Absolutely. The sheer superficiality is laid bare. But okay, let's leave the stuffy London drawing room and head out to the country. The manor house in Woolton. Things seem calmer there, but are they?
Not for long. We meet Cecily Cardew, Jack's ward, and her governess, Miss Prism. Miss Prism is trying to drill German grammar into Cecily.
But Cecily's not having it. She's more interested in her diary and her romantic daydreams. Their dynamic is quite revealing, isn't it? Miss Prism pushing intellectual pleasures.
and Cecily complaining German isn't becoming and makes her look plain.
Yeah.
It's that clash again what society expects versus youthful imagination, maybe vanity too.
In Cecily's diary, that's key. She says, I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
It's more than just a diary, isn't it? It's where she writes her own reality, a life lived more in imagination, perhaps.
Exactly. And then Miss Prism drops that interesting tidbit about having written a 3-volume novel once.
Yeah, and her definition of fiction. The good ended happily and the bad unhappily. That is what fiction means. And she mentions the manuscript was abandoned. A little detail that seems throwaway.
But definitely isn't.
Yeah.
Wilde is planting seeds all over the place.
And then Dr. Chasuble arrives, the local clergyman. He and Miss Prism have this very proper, slightly awkward courtship going on. Lots of moralizing, lots of tiptoeing around feelings.
Mm-hmm. Cecily even tries to push them together, suggesting a walk in the park. It's another little layer of social comedy showing how constrained feelings were, even for the supposedly upright figures.
That contrast between Miss Prism's stern exterior and this underlying romantic tension, it sets the scene perfectly for more deception, doesn't it? The countryside isn't immune.
Not at all. It's just another stage for the performance, and the next actor is about to make his entrance.
Right, because Merriman, the butler, announces Mr. Ernest Worthing.
And Cecily is thrilled. She's been hearing all about this scandalous, wicked brother Ernest from Jack. She's expecting some kind of villain.
But instead, in walks Algernon, looking charming and totally not wicked, pretending to be Ernest. He got Jack's address, of course. The audience is in on the joke. But Cecily, she's just excited.
But then things get really wild. Cecily drops a bombshell on Algernon. She informs him that they've been engaged for 3 months.
Which is news to Algernon, obviously. She explains it's all documented in her diary. The proposal, arguments, making up, everything. She even bought herself a ring from him.
She says it will be exactly 3 months on Thursday, and tells him how she decided to accept him under the old tree after a long struggle with myself. It's incredible.
It's Bunburying taken to the next level.
Yeah.
She hasn't just imagined a person. She's constructed and recorded an entire relationship with a fictional character.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It really highlights that power of imagination, maybe a longing for drama in her sheltered life. She's creating her own romance novel, essentially.
And just like Gwendolen, she's fixated on the name. It had always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name was Ernest. That name again. It inspires absolute confidence. The absurdity just keeps building.
So now Algernon is stuck, he's Ernest, and he's engaged to Cecily in a romance she completely invented. And
Then Jack arrives. But he's dressed in deepest mourning.
because he's just killed off Ernest. He tells Miss Prism and Chasuble that his poor brother died in Paris of a severe chill. He's trying to clear the way to become Ernest for Gwendolen.
The timing is perfectly disastrous. He walks in, having just announced Ernest's death, only to find Algernon as Ernest. Very much alive and flirting with Cecily. It's pure farcical genius.
Miss Prism's reaction to the death is priceless too. What a lesson for him. I trust he will profit by it. So prim and moralistic.
But the chaos isn't over yet, is it? Because then Gwendolen shows up.
Exactly. She's defied her mother and followed Jack, her Ernest, to the country. Now you have two women, Cecily and Gwendolen, both believing they're engaged to the same Mr. Ernest Worthing.
They meet, initially bond over their shared fiancé, calling each other sister almost immediately. You just know it's going to explode.
And explode it does in the most politely vicious way possible during the famous tea scene.
Ah, the tea scene. A masterclass in passive aggression. Cecily asks Gwendolen if she takes sugar.
Gwendolen says no. So Cecily deliberately puts sugar in her tea. Then Gwendolen asks for bread and butter.
And Cecily gives her a huge slice of cake instead. All with perfect smiles and icy politeness. It's brilliant.
It really shows how women in that society could wield power subtly, using social rituals as weapons. And their whole argument hinges on who has the prior claim to Ernest. The name is everything.
Their insistence that their first impressions are always right is just hilarious given the circumstances. It's all about the superficial, isn't it? The name, the first glance.
Completely. The actual men involved, Jack and Algernon, are almost secondary to the name Ernest. The whole situation is utterly absurd, fueled entirely by their deceptions.
So both men are exposed, both women are furious, not just about the lying, but about the name being wrong. It's set up perfectly for the final act, the big unraveling.
Right, Act 3, where all the chickens, or perhaps all the Bunburys, come home to roost. Gwendolen and Cecily, united in their fury.
They confront the men. And they say, almost in unison, that the men's real names, Jack and Algernon, are an insuperable barrier. The name is still the sticking point.
It's amazing, isn't it, how much weight that name carries? Their anger is real, but the reason feels so trivial yet crucial in their world.
And the men's reaction, equally absurd. They both immediately decide they need to get christened Ernest right away. Desperate times.
And just when the chaos seems absolute, who should sweep in again?
Lady Bracknell, of course. Summoned by Gwendolen's maid, she arrives to sort out this unsuitable engagement Algernon has apparently gotten himself into with Cecily.
But first, Algernon delivers some news. With total casualness, he announces Bunbury is dead.
Says he exploded. Found out, basically. The lie became unsustainable.
And Lady Bracknell's reaction is so perfectly morbid and detached. He seems to have had great confidence in the opinion of his physicians. No sympathy, just a comment on his medical advice. Bunbury served his purpose, now he's gone.
The end of an era for Algernon's excuses. But then Lady Bracknell turns her attention to Cecily, and her opinion does a complete 180.
Oh, yes. The moment she hears Cecily has a fortune, £130,000, everything changes. Suddenly, this girl she presumably thought was beneath Algernon.
Seems to be a most attractive young lady now that I look at her. It's just blatant. Money instantly makes Cecily acceptable, desirable even.
It's Wilde at his most savage, satirizing that upper-class obsession with wealth. Her comments about age are brilliant, too. 35 is a very attractive age, especially for women who choose to remain that age for years.
And her advice against long engagements because they let people find out each other's character before marriage, which I think is never advisable. It lays bare the whole transactional view of marriage. Forget character, secure the fortune.
It's brutally honest about the priorities of her class. But the revelations aren't done yet. Jack, playing the guardian card, initially refuses consent for Cecily to marry Algernon.
Citing Algy's untruthful nature and the fact he ate all the cucumber sandwiches earlier and drank the expensive champagne. It's wonderfully petty.
It is. But the real climax comes when Lady Bracknell demands to see Miss Prism, and she recognizes her.
Yes. She connects Miss Prism to that old scandal, the lost baby, 28 years ago, the governess who misplaced her charge.
And Miss Prism, completely flustered, has to confess, that moment of mental abstraction, putting the manuscript in the baby carriage.
And the baby boy, in the handbag, and leaving the handbag at Victoria Station, the Brighton line.
The pieces are falling into place with dizzying speed now. Jack hears this. The handbag, Victoria Station.
She rushes out, comes back holding the black letter handbag. Miss Prism identifies it, the scratches, the stain, her initials.
And Jack delivers the line. Miss Prism, more is restored to you than this handbag. I was the baby you placed in it. Incredible reveal.
But instantly undercut by comedy. Jack tries to embrace her as mother.
And Miss Prism recoils in horror. Mr. Worthing, I am unmarried. Propriety above all else, even in this moment of staggering revelation. It's hilarious.
So Lady Bracknell has to step in and lay out the final truth. Jack is her nephew. He's Algernon's older brother, son of her sister, Mrs. Moncrieff.
Making Jack and Algernon actual brothers, a fact completely unknown to them until this very moment, it neatly ties everything up.
But the ultimate question remains, what was his real name? Jack needs to know. Was he christened?
Lady Bracknell confirms, yes, of course, every luxury that money could buy, including christening. He was named after his father, General Moncrieff.
And a quick check of the army lists reveals the general's name, and therefore Jack's first name was Ernest. Ernest John Moncrieff.
He is Ernest. After all that deception, all that effort to become or get rid of Ernest, it turns out his real name was Ernest all along. It's the perfect, most symmetrical, most utterly wilding conclusion.
Lady Bracknell even vaguely recalls disliking the name Ernest for some reason. It's just layer upon layer of irony.
So everything resolves. All the lies unravel. Identities are confirmed through this absurd handbag incident. And everyone, somehow, gets exactly what they wanted. Jack is Ernest. Gwendolen gets her Ernest, Algernon gets Cecily and her fortune, and even Miss Prism and Dr. Chasuble seem headed for the altar.
And Jack gets the final perfect line, doesn't he? Holding Gwendolen, he tells Lady Bracknell, "On the contrary, Aunt Augusta, I've now realized for the first time in my life the vital importance of being earnest," bringing it all home.
It's such a clever ending. So, looking back, this trivial comedy, what's the serious takeaway? Wilde is using this glittering farce, this comedy of manners, to land some pretty heavy blows against Victorian society.
Absolutely. The hypocrisy, the class system, the way marriage was treated like a business transaction, the sheer silliness of their social rules, it's all dissected with surgical wit.
He shows a world where style often beats substance, where a clever lie is often more convenient, maybe even more artistic than the plain truth.
And it's not just a critique, is it? It feels like a celebration, too. A celebration of wit, of elegance, of rebelling against dull conformity through sheer style and cleverness.
Definitely. And his use of language is central to that. The puns, the paradoxes, the aphorisms, they're not just funny, they expose the contradictions. Words literally create reality in this play. The name Ernest has actual power. The stories they invent shape their lives.
It really makes you think about how much reality is constructed through language, even today.
It does. It reminds us that sometimes the lightest touch can deliver the sharpest critique. And maybe, if Algernon was right that truth is rarely pure and never simple, well, perhaps a little bit of Bunburying, a bit of artful performance, is almost necessary to navigate life.
Which leads to that final thought for you, our listener. What fictions do we create, or does our society create, to manage the complexities? What masks do we wear? What truths do we maybe simplify just to get by in our own earnest lives?
Something to ponder, definitely.
Thank you so much for joining us for this look at the importance of being earnest here on the Uncanny Valley podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you next time for another exploration.